Here it goes. Okay, there it goes. All right, there we go. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's A Month of Service presentation. We're here today for our Money, Health, and Wealth Financial Capability series of debt management and getting free. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the A Month of Service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and we have us joining us today is Ms. Cecile Carlson. On behalf of our sponsor, we have Ms. Monet Cheney with Family Houston, who's going to be presenting today, along with another one of our AMOS partners with Lone Star Legal Aid, Mr. John Ross Trevino, who will be presenting the information for you today about debt management and debt collection practices as well. But also included in the partnership is the Earl Carl Institute, Texas Legal Services Center, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, Harris Central Appraisal District, and the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. And together we make up A Month of Service. And basically, A Month of Service is the collaboration of all 8 organizations, all of us coming together on a monthly basis and offering a variety of different workshops and resources and information to the community relative to asset building, asset protection, the maintaining of generational wealth, and community empowerment. We know that there are a lot of underserved communities that are out there that don't have access to a lot of information. So we decided collectively to come together and pool our initiatives basically to try to create a larger impact and reach more people and provide information to the community collectively. So that's why we are here today, to provide you guys with some financial capability information from our series. This debt management course is actually one of the 8 courses in the financial capability series that we host on a monthly basis. We are here on the first Wednesday of each month. Areas related to credit, insurance and debt management and savings and budgeting and credit, and just about everything related to financial capability is included in this series. So we, on behalf of the Month of Service, we want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We are happy to have you here. Let's see. I think we got everybody in. Just wanted to make sure we got everything. Okay. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Know that this is an opportunity for you to ask questions of the professionals that we do have here today. If you're joining us on Zoom, please feel free to type your question into the chat or unmute yourself and ask your questions at the end of the presentation. Do know that we are broadcasting live on our social media platform on YouTube, as well as sharing it on our Instagram and Facebook pages. So we do ask that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can, so that your personal information does not get out there, and we want to try to protect your privacy as best as we possibly can. So do keep that in mind. But again, this is your opportunity to ask questions of the professionals that are here. Do know that information that is provided here is for educational purposes. Nothing is to be considered legal advice. However, we do encourage you to reach out to our legal service partners if you do find yourself in need of any civil legal assistance. In addition to that, you may also reach out to Family Houston if you are interested in having a one-on-one financial coaching session. And they're both going to go into a little bit more detail about the services that they actually offer as well. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. We're going to have them introduce first, and then we'll move on into the presentation. So Cecile, why don't we have you introduce first? John Ross will have you introduce, and then Monet, you can go, and then you can move on into your presentation.
Thank you, Nia. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. Thank you so much for being here despite the rain. I'm excited to listen to the presentation, and thank you to our community partners for their time today. It's an excellent opportunity to get information from people that are experts in their field, that know what they're talking about, and to get that information distributed in the community. So thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Hi, and yeah, thank y'all for being here. Forgive me, yeah, the rain's really coming out, so if I get distracted, there's some thunder and lightning behind me, or if y'all hear some noise, forgive me. My name is John Ross Trevino. I'm an attorney with Lone Star Legal Aid. We provide free legal services for civil matters. I am the managing attorney of our housing and consumer division. We provide a whole host of civil legal help with civil issues like family, consumer, housing, evictions. Um, but as it relates to consumer issues, we do debt defense and we do bankruptcy. Those are kind of the main issues involving debt. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And again, yeah, keep it in mind that we're going to be very public, and so keep your questions general. And if you have specific questions, I encourage you to reach out to Lone Star Legal Aid and apply through our online portal at lonestarlegal.org.
Okay, Monet.
Good evening. My name is Monet Cheney, and I am a senior financial stability coach with Family Houston. And here at Family Houston, we offer free financial and employment coaching to all age groups, actually 14 and up. And I'll talk a little bit more about our program as well as our teen and young adult program, if there are some young adults on the meeting today. But give me a second. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started with this month's presentation. Okay, so this month we are focusing on debt management. So I'm going to dive into creating a plan to get out of debt. And so just some learning objectives. We're going to learn how to get started with a debt management plan, understanding how to use the debt snowball strategy to become debt free, and then learn ways to manage future debts. Because sometimes you might have some future debts, but we want to make sure that you're managing those debts and you're not getting overwhelmed with the amount of debt that you have. So for some of you that might have missed our credit presentation, I do kind of want to go back to the basics, understanding why it's important to have good credit. And so having good credit also, or managing your debt, leads to good credit. And so this is why it's important to manage your debt and have a good credit history, because you're going to get better interest rates, which means that you're going to pay less interest on any type of future loan products, any credit cards that you have. And so anytime that you need to borrow money, you don't have to worry about having those high interest rates or getting denied. Next is employment. Whenever you're applying for employers, they are looking at the amount of debt that you have, because that can determine how responsible you're going to be in the workplace. And then especially if you're dealing in a workplace that has sensitive information, they will also look at your credit history and how much debt that you're carrying. Then your insurance companies, your premiums for insurances can be based on the amount of debt that you have. Utility companies, they're reviewing your credit history as well, because if you owe other utility companies, they will see that information. So that can determine your eligibility for utility accounts. And then rent, landlords are going to review your credit history, determine approval for rentals. And so they are going to look at your credit score, as well as they can look at the type of creditors that you have and the amount of debt that you have to determine if you're going to be able to pay your rent from month to month. So having good credit is going to save you money over time. Usually having very high debt amounts and low credit scores is going to cost you more money. And then understanding credit a little bit more. So you have your credit score and you have your credit report. Your credit score is only a number that shows how reliable you are at repaying your debts. The higher your score, the better the approval odds and interest rates that you receive. And the credit score is based on the information from your credit report. So your credit report is where you're going to get a full detail of all of your accounts over the last 7 to 10 years. And then there's 3 credit reporting agencies: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And then with your credit score, there's multiple credit scores. So you have FICO, you have Vantage, you have CreditWise. But it's most important to be familiar with your FICO score, because most lenders, even like landlords, when you're renting, if you're trying to purchase a house, if you're trying to buy a car, credit card companies, most likely they're going to look at your FICO score. And then how long does this affect your credit history? So it's very important to understand this information, because at some point in time, some accounts are going to fall off of your credit history. It doesn't mean that you don't owe them anymore. It just means that it's not going to be reported on your credit report. So following the rules of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, this act states that most negative items must be removed from your credit report 7 years from the first delinquency date. So this is the first time that account goes delinquent. If you start paying on that account again, then that delinquency date is going to change if you go delinquent again. So it's always going to be from the first delinquency date. And then Chapter 7 bankruptcy filings are for 10 years on your credit report as a public record. Judgments are 7 years or until the state statute of limitation expires, whichever is longer. And this is going to fall under public records as well. And then anytime you owe the government, so this can be unpaid taxes or student loans, those are going to stay on your credit report indefinitely or until 7 years from the date paid. And anytime you apply for credit and you have hard inquiries on your credit report, then those are going to last for 2 years. Is there any questions about how long items affect your credit report?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. Now for Mr. Trevino, I have a question about judgments. So with judgments, I just wanted to know, what is the Texas statute of limitations for judgments?
Yeah, so in Texas, well, a statute of limitations is 4 years to file a lawsuit. A judgment
Okay.
stays active for 10 years.
Okay.
And so, as far as having to pay back the judgment, it could stay active for up to 10 years and then longer if they do stuff to reactivate it. But as far as I think the credit reporting services go, according to the FCRA, it would remain on your, credit until 7 years.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So when it comes to correcting errors as well as fraud on your credit report, here are some ways to correct information, because sometimes there can be some errors on your credit report, and then also identity theft does happen. So we want to make sure that we're getting those things corrected. So as you're going through the process of paying debts off, as well as managing your credit reports, you want to make sure that you're correcting those errors as soon as possible, as well as filing any reports or claims for identity theft as soon as it happens. So first, there's a verification letter. So with verification letters, you can send those to the debt collector directly to get verification on the debt that they're collecting on. And then these letters supposed to pause collection efforts to make it to where they're not harassing you on a regular basis, because you want to make sure that they have sufficient information to have that to be collected on the debt. And then if you're intending on paying the debt to resolve the account, you might want more information to verify what you're paying and making sure that you're paying the right collector for the debt. And so the verification letter is totally different from a dispute letter. So with the dispute letter is you are disputing information that's incorrect or any information that is deemed as fraudulent. So when you are writing a dispute letter, you are going to identify what accounts are incorrect, and then you're going to send the letter to the credit reporting agency that's reporting the information. And in that letter, you're going to explain what information is incorrect, why it's incorrect, and then include any type of information to support your dispute. With identity theft, if you have fraudulent accounts due to identity theft, you do want to go to identitytheft.gov to submit a report and then follow their recovery plan to get accounts removed from your report. And there's a lot of steps, because I helped the client through this process on filing identity theft. And this can include getting a police report, as well as contacting credit card companies to let them know that this is a fraudulent account. So there's multiple steps that you have to go through just to make sure that you're able to prove that it's identity theft, which is sometimes hard to prove to creditors because they want someone to pay them. So just making sure that if you notice any fraudulent accounts on your credit report, identitytheft.gov is a good place to go to understand what steps that you need to go through. So just briefly on credit scores. So your FICO scores, again, is the credit scores that you should be paying attention to, because that's the credit scoring model that most lenders are using. So your credit scores can range 300 to 850. And so when it comes to managing debt, you want to make sure that you're managing how much you owe to revolving debts and keeping that under 30% of your total credit limit, because that makes up 30% of your credit score. Also, you want to make sure that you're paying on time, because paying your creditors on time is 35% of your credit score. And then inquiries, keeping those down to a minimum. So if you have a good amount of creditors that you're paying on that are active, then you shouldn't just be opening accounts just to open them. So if you're at the store and they're asking you, I was at Marshall's the other day and she asked me if I wanted a credit card. I was like, no, I don't need a credit card. But then she kept asking me over and over again, like, no, I don't need a credit card. So you don't want to be out there constantly opening credit just to open it, because those inquiries can stack up and that can affect your credit score, and it affects 10% of your credit score. And then we have 15% is the length of credit history. So the longer you have accounts open, the more credit history you have, and that looks good. And then credit mix. So just having a mix of installments and revolving debts, that's 10% of your credit score. So having that mix does help your score increase. If you only have one or the other, sometimes when I pull credit reports, if my clients do not have revolving debt, it was listed as a reason why their score isn't moving up as fast. So I usually start talking about ways to build your credit score through revolving debt. So it is good to make sure you have a good mix. Was there a question? Okay. Never mind, Nia, I see you posted the link for
Yeah.
identitytheft.gov. Thank you so much. So let's go into becoming debt free. So what I want to talk about is just some strategies on becoming debt free and then eventually managing the debts that you have. Here are some reasons why it's important because once you pay debts off, first you're increasing your disposable income that can go towards savings or go towards wants. A lot of time having a lot of debt payments, it can eat up your income very fast. And then you just have this burden of always like paying someone else versus paying yourself. So it's definitely going to increase the disposable income that you have to use towards your savings and wants. It's going to improve your credit score and credit history. Because having like high credit card balances again can reduce your score. So we want to make sure that we're paying those credit cards off and keeping those balances to a minimum. It's going to lower your debt to income ratio. So if you're wanting to purchase a house in the future, lenders are going to look at your debt to income ratio. So paying off debts, eliminate those monthly payments that go into the debt to income ratio. And then there's less stress and less financial burden. Having a high amount of debts can be stressful. It can cause some anxiety for some, especially if a lot of the debts are defaulted, because that can lead to other issues with debt collectors and potential lawsuits, things like that. So paying those debts off, reducing, becoming debt free is going to take away that stress and those financial burdens. So how do we get started? To get started is first you're going to look at your credit reports, make a list of everything that you owe. Also add in debts that are not on your credit report. This can be family, it can be friends that you owe. It can be utility bills that haven't hit your credit report as a collection yet. So just make sure you take inventory of everything that you owe and everyone that you owe. Then take a deep breath. You can get out of this because we're going to make a plan that you can follow to get out of debt. I'm not going to say it's going to be quick because becoming debt free can be a marathon. It can be a slow process depending on how much income you have available to put towards it. But having a plan is going to make it a lot easier for you to navigate the process. So first we want to get organized. So separate anything that's current and delinquent bills. Make sure amounts due and balances are up to date. So that's where some of that verification with creditors can come into play. Know your budget and how much money you have to eliminate debt. So making sure you understand total income coming in, all of your expenses, and where can you find the income to put towards eliminating your debts a lot faster. Determine if you want to pay off, negotiate settlements, or walk away. And then consider debt consolidation options. So when it comes to debt consolidation options, there's two types or three types that I know of. So first is getting a personal loan to pay off multiple debts and put it into one loan. And then you have one loan payment. The idea is that you want to have a lower interest rate on that personal loan. So you can pay that total amount of debt off quicker. A lot of times this type of debt consolidation involve credit card debt, which has very high interest rate, and you're taking a personal loan that might be half that interest rate to pay off all your credit card debt. So you can pay it off a lot quicker. To do that type of debt consolidation does require you to have a good credit history because you're applying for a loan and you have to qualify for it. And again, it does combine multiple debts into one and one monthly payment with a possible lower interest rate. Also, you have to be careful that if you're consolidating credit card balances into one loan, that you're not going to go back and use those credit cards and start building that credit card debt up at the same time that you're paying a debt consolidation loan, because that's just going to cause even more debt. So I do recommend, if you are going that route, to make sure that you take away your options to use those cards. You don't necessarily need to close them, because closing the card is going to drop your score. But take away your access to it. This can be what some people say, put the cards in the freezer in a block of ice, or cutting up the cards, the physical cards, so you don't have a physical card anymore. Also, we're very digital now. So a lot of us have our credit cards linked to our Apple Wallet, our Google Wallets, different websites or different apps. So we have our credit cards linked to. So you're going to want to eliminate all of those links. Like, you do not want the temptation to use those cards again while you're trying to pay off a debt consolidation loan. Another type of debt consolidation is going through a debt counseling service or credit counseling agency. And what they do is they negotiate with your credit card companies, and they negotiate lower interest rates for you and lower monthly payments, and then they consolidate it into one payment that you pay. You do have to be very careful with which type of debt consolidation companies that you're going through, because there are some for-profit ones that charge you very high fees. And I've seen a contract for one, and they basically cut someone's debt into half. But then, so the debt was like kind of around 40,000. They cut it by like 20 something thousand, but added 15,000 in fees and interest. So it really didn't help them that much to go through that service. So just being careful, like when you're talking to debt consolidation companies, that you understand what they are doing to consolidate your debt, because some of them, again, they have high interest and high admin fees. Also, some of them, when they want you to go into default. So if all of your accounts are current and you just are looking for lower interest rates or a quicker way to pay them off, some companies will want you to go into default, and that can drastically affect your credit score. So look for nonprofit organizations. So Money Management International, they are a nonprofit credit counseling agency. So they're not going to ask you to go into default. And then they'll, again, they work with their companies to negotiate lower interest rates. So look for nonprofit organizations to go through, so to eliminate those fees and interest when you're trying to pay off debt. The other option is not a consolidation option, but you can contact your credit card companies individually and negotiate payoff plans. Usually with these payoff plans, they can offer lower interest rates to pay the debt off, but they will require you to close the card. So the only way for you to get the payoff plan is for you to close the card. It will drop your score because now you don't have that credit history anymore. But if you're in a situation where it's going to take you a long time to pay that credit card off, and that credit card payment is overwhelming you, then it's less points to close the card than it is for you to go into default. So sometimes you have to make that decision to avoid a default, and that is to close the card and then negotiate the lower interest and lower monthly payments to pay the card balance off. Lastly, if your debt level is so high to where it's going to be very unaffordable for you to pay everything off, then you can determine if you need to declare bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a legal process, so it is best to speak with a lawyer who specializes in bankruptcy. Also, Money Management International, they do offer bankruptcy counseling to discuss the process with you and let you know if you qualify for it. I definitely wouldn't try to accomplish this on your own. So I would just make sure that if you're trying to decide if this is something you want to do, that you get legal advice. And I believe, John Ross, you mentioned that you guys work with bankruptcies.
Yeah, so we offer bankruptcy services. Probably after your presentation, I'll be happy to talk about bankruptcy and give people a little bit more information on bankruptcy. And, and if you're thinking about it, you can come and visit us and do an application with us.
Okay. And can you also go over like what happens if anyone gets sued by a credit card company or a debt or a creditor?
Sure. Do you want me to go over that now, or I was going to do
We
it?
could do it later.
Yeah.
We could do it
Okay.
later.
Yeah. I'll talk about what happens when you get sued, and then we can talk about bankruptcy.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just moving on with staying organized with your debt payoff plan. Write everything down. This creditor arrangement sheet is a spreadsheet that we use in financial coaching, just so my clients can have a list of everyone they owe and how much they owe, and then they can write out like how they want to manage that debt. You don't have to use a spreadsheet if you're not a spreadsheet person. You can use a notebook to write things out, but make sure that you're keeping track of everyone that you're paying off and that you're working on. When you're making phone calls to speak with creditors, also write that information down. When did you speak to them? Who did you speak to? What verbal agreements were made? Just making sure that you're keeping track of everything because it might be helpful at some point. So having a creditor's arrangement sheet is just a good way to keep track. And then next, we're going to talk about creating a debt snowball plan. So with the debt snowball plan, this is a plan that you're going to use if you're wanting to go ahead and start paying off and eliminating debts one by one. Usually with a snowball plan, you start with the smallest balance and you work your way up to the largest. And what you're going to do is for the first account, you're going to add a little bit of money onto that minimum payment. So you're going to determine your small snowball amount to add to your minimum payment. I recommend as a financial stability coach is to have your snowball be more than what the interest charge is. So because when you pay your minimum payment, most of it is going to the interest charges each month. So look at what your interest charge is and make your snowball a little bit more than that amount. And you're going to be making that extra payment on that one debt until it's paid off. Once the first debt is paid off, you're going to transfer your snowball amount plus the minimal payment from the first debt to the next debt on your list. And so you're going to just keep rolling and adding to that payment every month until all the debts are paid off. And so it's almost like the amount that you're paying per debt is going to slowly increase until they're paid off. And this is what helps the debts get paid off a lot quicker, because essentially, since you're paying more than the minimum, and also the payment that you're making is covering the interest that's being added, then it's going to make those debts go down a whole lot faster. So when we're creating our snowball plan, again, first you're going to determine how much extra you're going to pay towards your debt. Second, list all debts with names, balances, current interest rates, and then the minimal payments. And then third, you're going to decide on which order you want to pay debts. If you're doing the classic snowball plan, then it's going to be small balance to largest balance. If you're going to do an avalanche plan, then the avalanche plan is highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. Also, you can do a custom order based on like what debts you want to pay off first, and whatever order you want to pay them off. So I do have I have a spreadsheet for almost everything. So I do have a spreadsheet, and it's called the debt reduction calculator. With the debt reduction calculator spreadsheet, when you put in all of your information for each debt, then it will tell you the month and year that you're going to be debt free. It can help you determine like what you want your snowball payment to be, because the higher that snowball payment is, the faster the debts are getting paid off. And then if you want to make extra payments, so just say for instance, it's tax time, you get your tax return and you say, hey, you know what? I just want to throw some extra payments to certain debts to get them paid off quicker, then those are called snowflakes. But anytime you deviate from your planned payment, then you'll just take the debt calculator and start over, just so you can kind of see what your new payoff dates are going to be. So this is an example what it looks like. So if you can see, I already filled in some creditors, how much this person owes, the interest rates, and then the minimum payments for each card. So if you see that totally this person is paying $219 per month in credit card payments. And then but they want to pay $269, which gives them a $50 snowball. And then when we look at the next slide, if you look at the bottom, then it's going to tell you what month and year these debts, each debt is going to be paid off based on a $50 snowball. I skipped up top. You do have to put your balance date. So this balance date is January 1st, 2020. So then this is letting you how many months, letting you know how many months it's going to take to pay off each balance, and the month and year that is going to be paid off. And this is based on the interest rates that's been entered. So you can also see the total amount of interest you're going to pay over time. So it is good to make sure that when you're filling this top part out, that you're being very accurate with the numbers if you want to have a good idea of when your payoff dates are going to be. So looking at your credit card statements is going to give you this information. And then on the last or the next tab on this calculator, then you can see your payment schedule. So this tells you exactly how much you're going to be paying each month for per debt. And then if you can see, every time a debt is paid off, that amount is just added on to the next one, and it just keeps adding on until they're all are paid off. Is there any questions about debt payoff plans and the snowball strategy?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. Has anyone tried this before? Tried a snowball plan or heard of the snowball plan?
No, I haven't heard of it. This is my first time hearing about it.
Okay. Because I know it's famous with Dave Ramsey. Dave
Oh,
Ramsey
okay.
talks about it a lot. But it is a very it's a very good plan to follow. And then Nia, I don't know if I sent this to you before, but I can send a blank copy to Nia to share with everyone.
Yep,
Yes.
I have it. So I'll send the template out to everybody as well. Yes.
And then also, you can find that one on Vertex 42. But if you Google search snowball calculators or debt reduction calculators, you can find like other calculators to figure out like how long it's going to take you to pay off debts based on your interest rate and monthly payments.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I actually screenshotted it when you posted it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so if your credit history was affected due to the amount of debt that you have, at some point you might have to start rebuilding your credit history and rebuilding your credit score. So here's just some tips just to go about building a good credit history. So if your credit history was affected, then you want to start rebuilding as soon as possible, because the length of your credit history matters when you're building your score. And then if you do not have active credit history, start as soon as possible. Sometimes we get to a point with the amount of debt that we have that all of our accounts might go into default and now they're not active anymore. And then, so you're gonna have to have some open active credit to start building your score and building your score back up. So you're gonna want to do that as soon as possible because the length of good credit history does matter. Trust me, sometimes they'll pick on you if you had one late payment in 2 years. So you want to start like building that good credit history again as soon as you can. And then start small. So building your credit history doesn't mean you have to go and get a loan for $1,000 or get like spend a big amount on a credit card. You want to start small because you want to make sure that you do not build up that debt again to where it's unaffordable for you to maintain. So start building your credit history with affordable credit builder options, such as credit builder loans. So make sure the credit builder loan isn't more than you can pay per month. Or secure credit cards. Usually secure credit cards only have limits at minimum $100. And then some minimum deposits are $300 depending on the card. So just start off small with a small limit, just so you can kind of get back, so you can learn on how to be wise with a credit card again. And then make sure that your credit cards are not going over 30% of your limit. So maybe make one purchase under 30% of that limit and then pay it off each month. And then keep a monthly payment budget friendly. So just make sure that whatever credit builders you're getting, it fits into your budget. So doing your budget every month is going to make sure you understand that those payments are fitting into your budget. Lastly, pay all bills on time. So as you saw earlier, your payment history is a big factor that affects your credit score and history. It makes up 35% of your credit score. So you want to pay all your bills on time. And this also goes for bills that are not reported to the credit bureaus every single month. So your utility payments, your rent, even cell phones, because if you stop paying your cell phone, then that means that bill can become a collection item. So anytime you have signed any type of document that you're going to pay someone on a monthly basis, you want to make sure you're paying them on time every month. And you're because again, the bills that do not show up on your credit report, they can add up if you become late. And then that monthly bill is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And then eventually you can't pay it at all. And then it can become a collection item with that company. And there's just some other tips to building good credit, as well as maintaining your debts and managing your debts a lot better in order for it to build good credit. Develop a budget and stick to it. So do your budget plans every month. And then also getting new credit cards does not mean you have more income. Credit cards, any personal loans you get, those are an expense. So anytime you borrow money, it should be in your mind that it's an expense and it's not additional income for you to spend every month. So do you want to make sure that those monthly payments are going to fit into your current budget? Save money so you can be prepared for rainy days and big purchases. So make sure you have an emergency fund. And as you paying debts off and become debt free, then that can allow you to start saving more money so you don't have to always borrow to do things or borrow for emergencies, because you already have that money saved up. So basically you're just borrowing from yourself and paying yourself back. Again, pay all bills on time. Keep credit card balances low or aim to pay off monthly. So making sure you don't have high credit card usage. Check your credit. I have annually here, but I feel like you should check your credit on a regular basis. We get a lot of, I get a lot of scam texts, emails, phone calls. So I know everyone else is getting the same communication. So you just want to make sure that there's no fraudulent information on your credit report. Also, a lot of times there's the people that are close to you are the ones who have access to your private information. So you just want to make sure that there's nothing on your credit report that can affect you in a negative way, and you want to dispute that information as soon as possible. So just always check and monitor your credit reports on a regular basis. Only borrow what you can afford to pay back within 30 days. Anytime you do not make a payment after 30 days, that's usually when the late payment hits your credit report. So just making sure that you're able to make those monthly payments within that 30-day span. And then protect your identity at all costs. So again, ignore any phishing phone calls, text messages, emails. Also be careful of like people reaching out to you, because sometimes someone might reach out to you with some type of scam that's too good to be true, and they're fishing for information. So just be careful of who you're giving your information to. Protect sensitive information at home to make sure that no one have access to it. And then again, we're such a digital society now. A lot of times we're putting our credit cards and checking account information on different websites and wallets on our phones and things like that. So that means that people might get access to it. So just make sure that you're using secure websites and secure Wi-Fi networks and things whenever you're using the internet and you're using like your account information online. Here are some debt management resources. So for free credit reports and also access to your credit scores. First is annualcreditreport.com, where you can get all 3 credit reports for free. It used to be once a year. I don't know. I know during COVID, they had where you can like pull your credit as many times as you want. I'm not for sure if they went back to the once a year. But when you go to their website, you can double check if it gives you an option to look at it multiple times. Otherwise, you can pull it for free once a year. Experian, you can create an account with Experian directly, and you can get their credit report for free as well as a free Experian FICO score. MyFICO.com, you can get Equifax FICO score for free. But if you want the other 2, you do have to pay. Also, MyFICO.com will give you your mortgage scores if you're trying to purchase a house, as well as give you your auto lender scores if you're trying to purchase a vehicle. So sometimes it's good to pay for your credit scores from the source. Credit Karma. Credit Karma is good for free credit history and monitoring. They do give you TransUnion and Equifax credit report. They give you a credit score, but it's a Vantage score. So that is not the same as FICO. So I would not compare Credit Karma's credit score to your FICO score because you're going to be disappointed because one is going to be higher than the other. So if you are applying for credit, make sure that you're going to myfico.com to get your scores because that's going to be a lot more accurate. But it is safe to say if your Vantage score is going up, then your FICO score is probably going up too. They're just going to be a different number. And then lastly, online banking and your credit card statements will provide a FICO or credit-wise score depending on the company. So you can check your bank mobile app or website to see if they provide a credit score. I don't think they provide the credit report, but they will provide a credit score and they'll tell you what's affecting your credit score. And then again, credit counseling services, Money Management International. I only recommend them because I know that they have low admin fees, and then they have different credit counseling services based on what your needs are. And then if you're wanting to do free financial coaching, Family Houston, we do offer free financial coaching. And then with our financial coaching session, we do give you your TransUnion FICO score for free. And then we go over your TransUnion credit report. And then we just talk about your overall financial goals. We do provide other resources as well if you're needing different resources or tools to help you reach your financial goals. Any questions for me before we move on?
I don't see anything in the chat or on social
Okay.
media just yet.
Okay.
But if there are any other questions in the meantime that somebody else thinks of, please feel free to type them in the chat or unmute yourself
Yeah.
and go ahead and just ask. But we are going to go ahead and move on with Mr. John Ross Trevino with Lone Star.
Okay. Do you want me to do my contact information?
Oh, I'm sorry.
once we're
Yeah,
done?
I thought you did that part. But yes, go ahead and do that.
Okay. Yeah, so if you want to schedule with me for financial coaching, I do financial and employment coaching. You can reach me at my cell is 832-987-2023, or my email is mchaney@familyhouston.org. So that's mcheney@familyhouston.org. And earlier I did mention that we serve age groups 14 and up. So if you're between 14 and 24, we do provide the financial employment coaching for our teenagers and young adults through our Youth on the Move program. And then we have some additional resources for that age group. So if you're a young adult, 18 to 24, and you want to learn how to build credit and not get into debt, as well as manage any debts that you have, then you can sign up through our teen and young adult program. And that's it for me. Do you want me to close out?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna
Yeah.
share. So I got my own presentation, so I can
Yes.
share that. All right, let's pull it up. All right. Sorry. All right. Again, my name is John Ostrevino. I'm an attorney with Lone Star Legal Aid. I'm going to be talking to you today a little bit about credit and debt and the legal aspect of it. I want to thank the last presenter. I thought that was very good, very insightful. Yeah, very insightful. A lot of what she touched on, I agree with completely and going to echo it a little bit. Let's see. Okay. So first, I was going to give you some information on credit rights. As she said, at annualcreditreport.com, you can get one free credit report. As she said, during COVID, there's free reports once every week. I think it is only once a year now, but you can pull it from all three. You can go to annualcreditreport.com. Opt-out pre-screen allows the consumer to opt out of credit card offers. I'm sure everybody gets it in the mail. You get a new credit card offer almost every week. The spam mail comes in. This is just a great option so that you can opt out of that, and so it doesn't come on and tempt you with new credit cards. So let's talk about debt. First thing, third-party debt collection actions. A lot of what I see on the legal aspect and the legal side of things is after you incur debt, after an individual incurs debt, it's not the original person who you incurred the debt that sues you. What happens is when you incur debt, let's say you have a city credit card. What's okay, so let's say you have a city credit card, you stop paying. Once you stop paying, city kind of realizes that they're not going to be able to collect money from you anymore. And what they do is they sell the debt for pennies on the dollar to what's called third-party debt collectors. And what they do is just try to collect the debt. They kind of specialize in just collecting the debt. And so what they do is they call you, send you mail, and try to collect the debt. As I said, usually these third-party debt collectors buy the debt for pennies on the dollar, meaning if you owed $100, they bought it for 50 something cents. And so any money that they collect is usually profit. And so they try to collect. And what that means is you don't necessarily have to pay them what they are asking for. You can usually negotiate. You can get it down to sometimes 20, 30% of what's owed. And so that's just something to keep in mind that you don't have to cave into the pressure of those debt collectors. A lot of times there's a lot of flexible options about how much you can pay and how much they're willing to accept to settle that debt. Can a debt collector contact one's friends, families, and neighbors? No, they can't. They're only allowed to communicate with you. As they said in the last presentation, one of the important things is called a verification letter. So I said a lot of these are third parties, so they're not the original creditor that you had that relationship with. It's not Citi. And so when you send a verification letter, you're verifying that who's trying to collect the debt actually purchased the debt and that you actually owe money to them. I will say now, I'm sure as everybody gets spam calls, I get calls from different numbers, a lot of scams. You really don't know when somebody calls you who they are, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to collect, and if what they're doing actually comes from the debt that you owe. And so that verification letter is very important. As I was saying, the debt collector can only contact you. You can also send them a cease and desist letter, basically telling them, stop communicating with me. And when you tell them that, they have to stop communicating with you, and the only actions they can take are legal actions, meaning the next step would be for you to sue them. What happens if the matter goes to court? We'll talk about that, the court procedure, court process. Can a collector take one's benefits? Example, retirement benefits. So no, there's only a certain amount of legal process that they can do. And even if they get a judgment, there's only certain things that they can collect. We have laws that protect consumers, basically saying that we don't want someone to take the shirt off your back. And it's a civil matter. I know a lot of people who come to me are afraid, oh, am I going to get arrested for not paying my debt? And one of the things I just have to tell people and comfort them is this is a civil matter. You don't get arrested for not paying your debt. And so there's, you know, not a reason to avoid it. You should try to confront it. You shouldn't be afraid because, again, they can't arrest you. It's not a criminal matter. This is all civil. What if a collector is trying to collect a debt from a long time ago? As I talked about earlier, debt collection has a 4-year statute of limitations, meaning if the debt is older than 4 years old, they can't file a lawsuit against you. And so that's the statute of limitations in Texas. If any debt is older than that 4 years, then they can't collect on it. What should one do if they've been sued? You should contact Lone Star Legal Aid, get legal advice. Again, if you believe that debt collector is violating the law, contact Lone Star Legal Aid, contact an attorney, get legal advice. So I was saying, debt's a 4-letter word. It's spoken in hushed tones. Many consumers have it. It's just very prevalent that it's debt, but a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. But as a consumer, you have rights. You have rights under the federal law. You have rights under state law. And those rights are affected by third-party debt collectors. So again, all those debt collectors that specialize, the third-party debt collectors that specialize in collecting on your accounts, there are laws specifically to protect you against them. Again, many people have been harassed by them in the past, and so there are specific laws saying they can't harass you and they can't contact, you know, other people besides yourself. So they can call you, but if they call you, they must send you a written notice within 5 days of that initial communication. They must notify you of your right to request validation. And we talked about validation. Validation is important because it validates that the person who's calling you, trying to collect the debt, actually owns that debt and actually has the right to collect it from you. Again, it's very important to validate that debt. We talked about it earlier. And then they must stop contacting you if you dispute the debt or have an attorney. So if you dispute the debt, you tell them to stop contacting you. They're supposed to cease, desist. If you have an attorney, they're not supposed to contact the consumer. They're supposed to go through their attorney because they're represented. So when the debt ends up in court, so one of the main things I want to emphasize is don't do the ostrich defense. Basically, that means avoiding the lawsuit, thinking that it'll go away. If it ends up in court, what happens is they have to file a lawsuit against you and they have to issue citation. What citation is it's delivered by a process server informing you of the lawsuit. Once you get that formal warning, usually by a constable or a process server, that indicates that there's a court proceeding against you and you need to react. That citation will tell you when your answer is due. What an answer is basically you saying what's called a general denial. You stating, I deny what the plaintiff's saying, and I demand strict proof for them to prove up that debt. The debt collector, the person trying to collect from you, has the burden of proof in the lawsuit. You're able to just generally deny it and make them meet their burden to prove it. So once you get that lawsuit, it's your responsibility to file an answer. What an answer is basically you acknowledging the lawsuit and you giving your contact information to the court. When you file that answer, that is how the court will communicate and send important notices to you. Those important notices are like hearing dates, trial dates. And so if you don't file an answer, you're not going to get any notices. You may not get any notices. If you don't file an answer and respond to the lawsuit, they have a right to seek what's called a default judgment. Basically, since you didn't acknowledge it, then that's the same as admitting it. And the other side, the debt collector, can ask the court to issue judgment for them. And so they'll get a judgment. And so what you want to do is make it, as difficult as possible. You want to avoid that default judgment. If you ignore it, they will get a judgment against you, and that has implications on your credit, on your life, on how they collect it. And it's going to be a lot more pain to ignore a lawsuit than to, process and deal with it. So what's the worst case scenario? So the lawsuit, like I said, is they issue the citation, you file an answer, and then the court will give you notice of your hearings or trial. At the trial, they have to put on their evidence. You can dispute the debt. You can say it's not your debt. It's very difficult to kind of do that, but the plaintiff has the burden. The debt collector has the burden. I would encourage you to go seek legal help with third-party debt collectors. There are very technical arguments that lawyers can be successful on in getting that debt, that lawsuit dismissed. But I think it's very difficult for somebody without an attorney to do it. Like I said, there are technical defenses, mainly that these are third-party debt collectors. Again, it's their burden to prove that they own the debt. They have difficult doing that a lot of times. Their paperwork isn't up to date. They have what's called a volume business. They just try to collect as much money from as many people as they can through either default judgments or settlements. And so again, they usually offer settlements. If you file an answer, they will accept less than what is owed, and they'll negotiate with that. And then, like I said, a lot of times with an attorney, you may even be able to get it dismissed, meaning that you won't owe anything, or get a judgment in your favor saying that you don't owe anything. But when they pursue a lawsuit, there's kind of different ways it's going to end. If you don't answer, there's going to be the default judgment. They could ask for a summary judgment, or can go to court and they can get a judgment. And what a judgment is basically a piece of paper. Judgment's just a piece of paper saying that they owe you money. But what can they do with that piece of paper? Like I said, in Texas, we have laws that protect consumers. In Texas, your house is protected, so they can't take your house. Your car is protected, so they can't take your car. And up to $50,000 worth of personal property is protected. And so for a lot of individuals, that basically covers everything that they own and they need. And so they're basically what we call judgment proof, meaning that even with the judgment, there's not many ways that they can collect. But I am here to tell you how they do try to collect. So if they get a judgment against you, they usually do what's called post-judgment discovery. They send you questions, seeing if you have any unexempt items. Like I said, in Texas, your house is exempt, your car is exempt, so they don't try to go after that. But unfortunately, in Texas, what isn't exempt is bank accounts. And so there are some tools in post-judgment that allows them to collect. Those tools are called garnishment and receiverships. And what this is basically frozen bank accounts. After they get a judgment, they try to figure out where you bank, and they will use this process, garnishment or receivership, to freeze your bank account, forcing you to come to the table and either negotiate a deal or they go to the court and they accept those funds. Now, even if they go through that process, there are legal ways to get it back. There's forms that they have to provide for you if they freeze your bank account that tells you how you can contest it. You can contest it by telling the court that you have exempt funds and what they filed is exempt. And so that's kind of the legal process as far as court goes. There's another process for debt solution in bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is federal law, and your case happens in federal court. So most of it is federal law with only a small sliver of state law being applicable. Bankruptcy is very technical, and I encourage you to get an attorney for doing bankruptcy too. The important part about bankruptcy to acknowledge is the different types of debt. So there are secured creditors and unsecured creditors. A secured creditor is one who has interest in your property, something like your house or your car. So your house payment, that's called a secured creditor. If you stop making your mortgage payments, then that company has the right to foreclose on your house. If you don't make your car payments, that creditor has the right to repossess your car. And then there's unsecured creditors, usually like credit cards, medical debt. If you owe them money, they don't have a right to take anything. So like I said, they can't take your car, they can't take your house because those are exempt generally. But if you have credit card debt, if you have medical debt, and you don't pay it, one of the things I joke about, if you have debt with the dentist and you get dental work done, they can't come back and take the teeth out of your mouth, thankfully. And so all of that's unsecured debt. And then one of the best things about bankruptcy, one of the most important aspects of bankruptcy is called the automatic stay. This is what's called a bankruptcy shield. It prevents creditors from trying to collect money from you during the bankruptcy. And so an automatic stay, like its name implies, is automatic. And it basically gives the debtor breathing room. When you file, it gives you time to assess and stops collection actions. This is important if you're losing your house, you can file bankruptcy, you get the automatic stay, and it postpones the house foreclosure so that you can go through that bankruptcy process. Basically, it puts a pause on everything, gives you a little bit of time, room to breathe, so that you can figure out how to deal with your debt. With all that being said, yeah, bankruptcy is a last resort. You can file bankruptcy at any time. So even if there's a judgment, you can file it after a judgment. You can file it before a judgment, but you should really save that bankruptcy for crucial times when you need it. If you're behind on the house, you're behind on payments. But think about bankruptcy and use it strategically so that after you file bankruptcy, you want a successful bankruptcy so that you come out of it, not still burdened by debt, not still having a lot of payments. You want to file it when when the debt's so much that getting rid of it will help you do a new start. And getting rid of it means that you won't be getting into debt as soon as you come out of bankruptcy, because you don't want to file a bankruptcy and then get into debt again. Some other important aspects of bankruptcy is the schedules. It's basically bankruptcy paperwork that you must file with the court, includes detailed financial information. So, in the last presentation, she had those reports up, schedules up, who she owed debt to, how much. That's basically what the schedule is. A bankruptcy is going to be a real financial intrusion into your life, to put it one way. The bankruptcy court wants to know everything about your financial life, how much money you make, how much money you owe, where your debts are, what your assets are. And they really dive deep into it when you file bankruptcy with your schedules. And then it's important to know the main different types of bankruptcies for consumers. When somebody talks about Chapter 7, that's called a liquidation bankruptcy. A Chapter 7 deals with unsecured creditors and unsecured debt. So, like I said, the credit cards, medical debt, if that's the only type of debt you have, you probably want to think about a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, as that will wipe out and discharge all that unsecured debt. Now, if you have debt with your house, if you're behind on your house payment, a car payment, Chapter 13 is what's called a payment plan bankruptcy. So if you're behind on your house, basically in a Chapter 13, you can take what you're behind, uh, put it out over 5 years, and stretch out what you owe over 5 years to make a more affordable payment plan. And it forces the creditor to accept that payment plan. So if you're behind 2 payments, you can, with a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, take those 2 payments and stretch it out over the 5 years of your bankruptcy plan. But during that, you also have to be making your regular payments. So you have to be making your regular mortgage payment plus your bankruptcy plan on what you were behind. But it allows you to enter into that payment plan and allows you and forces that creditor to accept that payment plan. Normally if you're behind, they may not have to accept a payment plan with you if it's not in the paperwork. But the federal bankruptcy, forces the creditor to basically have to accept that payment plan. Once you file your bankruptcy, the first thing you'll do is called the meeting of creditors. That's about a month after you file. It's a meeting with your attorneys, the trustee, the person who oversees the bankruptcy, and any creditors, and yourself. Usually for this kind of consumer debt, when I've done it, I've never had a creditor meet us, but the trustee reviews what you filed, your schedules, and make sure that everything's there. Usually what the trustee does is determines your payment plan and if it's enough to pay equitably all your creditors. So like I said, in Chapter 13, if you have disposable income, some of your money will go to unsecured creditors. So not only will it go to secured creditors, it'll go to unsecured creditors. At the end of your bankruptcy, you get what's called the bankruptcy discharge. That's the end of your bankruptcy. And that means that any of the debts you had, you don't have to pay that anymore. And it's going to be off of your financial debt load. Exempt assets. During a bankruptcy, you have exempt assets. The state law applies, things that you're allowed to keep while you're in the bankruptcy. Judgment proof, I already talked about that. Adversary proceeding is lawsuit within the bankruptcy. So sometimes if you have a complicated case or you dispute debt, you might go through that adversarial proceeding to challenge and get a ruling about how much debt is owed. It happens if you had a dispute with your mortgage company about how much is owed, somebody messes up, you can file the bankruptcy to stop the collection action, stop foreclosure, remain living in your home, and then you can file a separate lawsuit to figure out any other issues in the meantime. So there's different trustees. The U.S. trustee is the part of the Department of Justice, which oversees all bankruptcies. The U.S. trustee's job, again, and I'll say this, bankruptcy is very seriously. You file all your financial information and you're saying that what you filed is true and correct. And there's somebody from the US government that if you're not being truthful with what you file, you can get in a lot of trouble. It's called bankruptcy fraud. And the US trustee is the person that oversees it. And so, yeah, you have to give accurate, truthful information. And then there's different bankruptcies that oversee the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So again, it's a very financially intrusive, lot of information. Usually you're going to pull up your credit report so you can see all your debts. You're going to list all your debts, all the people you owe money to. And as part of that bankruptcy proceeding, you also need to have your tax return filed for the last 4 years. They need to see the pay stubs for the last couple months and bank statements. And so, yeah, like I said, filing bankruptcy, they really look at your financial assets. They look at your financial life and well-being. And it's a very deep dive into your financial well-being. So you should do the money management part before. If you ignore it, you got to go into bankruptcy and you're going to have to do it anyways. So, might as well get ahead of it. Credit counseling. Bankruptcy also requires credit counseling. You need to complete credit counseling before you file the bankruptcy. And then after you file bankruptcy, you take a personal financial management course. Again, all of this is to help consumers get on financial track. Bankruptcy is a last resort. We don't want people filing bankruptcy, and we want them to be successful financially afterwards. And so all of this is to improve people's financial lives. Chapter 7 is the liquidation bankruptcy, used when you have no money to pay your bills. Again, this is because usually you don't have a house or car payments, and you're up to date on your payments, or you're up to date on your payments on your house or car. You might be able to get a filing fee waiver. Normally, there's a filing fee, but with Chapter 7, you might be able to get a waiver. When you file the Chapter 7, your unsecured credit card, the unsecured creditors, like the credit cards, usually get no money. Usually because when you file Chapter 7, it's because you're unable to make the payments. All that unsecured debt's discharged. You get to keep all your exempt assets, and the process takes about 4 to 6 months from start to finish. Again, you need to talk to an attorney to make sure that all your assets are exempt. If you have assets that are not exempt, maybe stocks or something that you could use to pay creditors, the trustee will take those assets, take control of those assets, sell them, and use it to pay your creditors. I think stocks might be the most common thing to think about. There's other states where houses aren't exempt, and so it's something to think about. But if you have something that's not exempt, then that trustee in a Chapter 7 can take it, sell it. And so you want to talk to a lawyer, make sure you don't have any of that before you file. Some debts are not dischargeable: child support, student loans, income taxes, and criminal fines. You can only file Chapter 7 bankruptcy once every 8 years if you've previously filed a Chapter 7, or once every 6 years if you filed a Chapter 13. So again, it's important to think about and consider before you file a bankruptcy, because you're not going to be able to get to file it every couple years. Like this says, once every 8 years for a Chapter 7. So you want to utilize that and make sure you're using it strategically for your financial health. Chapter 13, you have a filing fee, but you can apply to pay for it in installments. This is a payment plan bankruptcy. So during the bankruptcy, you will be making a plan payment every month during the duration of the bankruptcy. Again, this is used to save your secured assets like your house or your car. You must have regular income. They make sure that you're able to make the payment. If you're not able to make a payment, then that bankruptcy barely gets started. And then payments are made over a 3 to 5 year plan. The benefit is your unsecured debt will also be discharged. The bankruptcy lasts from 3 to 5 years. If you're trying to save your house, very specific procedures to follow. And again, you can keep your exempt assets. With a Chapter 13, you're in charge of your assets during the procedure, but you need to make payments and keep up with your payments. Failure to make the payments means your bankruptcy will disappear, and the creditor can go after the things like your house, your car, whatever debt you're behind on. For Chapter 13, you cannot get a discharge if a previous Chapter 7 was within the past 4 years. It cannot file if you get a discharge in a previous 13 within the past 2 years. So there's time limits and time frames on the 13. Same thing with Chapter 13. Some debts are not dischargeable: student loans, child support, income taxes, criminal fines. Fortunately, all that's just not dischargeable, meaning you can't get rid of it using the bankruptcy process. You must complete your payments over the course of your plan to get the discharge. If you don't complete your payment plan, you don't get the discharge on your unsecured assets or on the unsecured debt. If you don't make your payments, your case will be dismissed. Once you've been granted that discharge, it's legal for creditors to try to collect on the same debt. Um, so yeah, sorry. So what should you do to protect your bank accounts and or your house? Get help, talk to people, call Lone Star Legal Aid, go to our website. You can apply online, lonestarlegal.org. You can apply online, you can call, do an intake, or you can come into our office at 1415 Fannin. Think that's all. I can open it up for questions and be happy to answer questions on that.
Hey, I was trying to put the link to your website in the chat also because the link goes out to all of the participants as well.
Yeah.
And of course, the computer's going slow. LoneStarLegal.org. Why won't it- Okay, are there any other questions of the participants here before I get into my list of questions?
And I was like, I have questions
Uh,
too.
I have questions about the bankruptcy for the Chapter 7 and the Chapter 13. So you said the Chapter 7 is for the unsecured debt, and for the Chapter 13 is for the secured debt. So if you're not looking to liquidate your assets, can you use a Chapter 13 for unsecured debt as well, and vice versa?
So you wouldn't want to. So in a 13, you'd have to be making payments. And so
Kind of defeats the purpose then at that point
yeah,
then.
in a chapter 7, you can get rid of your unsecured debt without having to make any payments. And so that's just the better course of action to do.
Okay, so
Um,
that's not an option then for people if they're
so that does remind me, as part of that question, you can start in a chapter 13. I said if you don't make the payments, it might get dismissed, but you can also convert it into a chapter 7. So if you had the idea that you're going to make the payments and go through all of that, but the bankruptcy is 3 to 5 years and life happens, you may not be able to complete it. You may still be able to convert it to a chapter 7 and get a discharge on the unsecured debt. Um, so yeah, you do have the ability to, if you start at chapter 13, unable to complete it, you might be able to convert it to a chapter 7 and still get a discharge under a chapter 7.
okay. Trying to watch the social media too to make sure I don't have any other questions. Monet, you want to go ahead and ask your questions as well?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Because so one thing that I see a lot are apartment related collections. And so a lot of my clients don't know like where the amounts are coming from.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they're not getting the itemized list from the apartment
Department.
complex. And then also like once it become a collection, then they don't even know what is entailed in that amount. Like one client, I think she owed like 15,000 and she don't even know what it's all for. So how can like individuals go about fighting like against like um apartment debts in general?
It's similar process with apartment debts. One of the things I find useful is there's security deposit laws. And so usually when you move out, um, I've lived in apartments and then they ding you for this or that and the cleaning fees and they tell you you owe stuff after you move out and just a hassle about them telling you after you move out how much you owe. And so there's security deposit laws. When you put a security deposit, they have to return that security deposit to you. If they don't return it to you, you can send them a letter asking them to return it to you. And within 30 days, they have to give you either the money back for your security deposit, or they have to give you a list and reason why. So they have to give you that itemized list of the the account. And so that's one thing we use. Um, on your question, I think there's just other issues about what are they charging? they should provide you with the accounting for what they have. Otherwise, it's probably like shady kind of practices. And if they're not giving it to you, it's hard to work with them. But if they file a lawsuit, they have to show the court that. The other spot to look at is the lease. And so the lease kind of outlines what happens when you move out and how much they can charge. I think kind of the standard TAA lease is something like having to give 2 months notice and maybe try to charge for 2 months. But yeah, you can ask them for it and try to get that accounting from them. And you kind of just have to fight with them. Another thing I see with them is the same issue of you lived with, one apartment complex, but it's almost the same thing with third-party debt collection. They sell it to some kind of debt collector and they're trying to collect it. And so you're going to have the same defenses that I talked about, them having to prove that they own the debt. You can ask for that verification and validation of the debt. And so you kind of have those same defenses. And that's what I've seen with apartments is, yeah, even when you're behind on apartments, they sell it to a collection company, and that collection company is the one who's going after you.
Being in real estate, I've had that same issue before where a client will go out and they'll start, trying to submit an application for a rental property or what have you, or even to go and try to purchase a house. And then they see, oh, the lender pulls a credit report and you've got a collection against you for an apartment that you had from 6 years ago or something like that, that they never knew about. But then when they try to reach out to the apartment complex, then it's, oh, well, we're the new property management company, or we're now the new owners and what have you. Then what does a consumer do in that point if it's changed ownership or if it's changed property management companies, and then they don't have information from 5, 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think the best thing in that situation, I think I was going to say something else, but the main part is under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you can dispute that debt. And so when you dispute that debt with the credit reporting agency goes to them and makes them basically validate it. They need to provide all that information, and you can use that process. So the thing I was going to add is when you apply for a new apartment complex, you do that credit reporting. If they deny you for whatever you're applying for, they have to give you the reason and the credit report they used. And so you can see, I mean, I guess you're kind of saying that stuff, but you can see who's saying that you owe them money. And then you can dispute that with the credit reporting agency. And so, if it was somebody you didn't have debt with, you go and you dispute it with that credit reporting agency.
Gotcha.
So so essentially, do the collection agency have to have that itemized list from the apartment complex stating that you owe X amount of dollars for these damages and these
No, well,
bills?
yeah, I think they do. As you talked about, when we
Which
talked about,
burden of proof do they have to have?
I mean, if you dispute it, because you can dispute the debt, then, they have to provide proof that they own it and how much you owe. And so they need those documents to prove it. And so you can dispute that debt. If they're not providing anything from you, then yes, you dispute it. And once you dispute it, it's up to them to prove or, undispute it, saying, no, look, this is the information I got. This is what you owe. Unfortunately, it's a lot, it's kind of hard for the consumers, but especially, where I deal with it in front of a judge, if they don't have that information, a court's not going to take them seriously. And so, yeah, they need that information. Like I said, you can dispute it. If you dispute it, they have to give you the proof.
Yeah. And one thing I know that what a consumer can do, Monet, when it comes to those rental issues too, and we talk about this in the evictions presentation, is when they move, make sure that they have a forwarding address on file. So that way they can't say, oh, well, we didn't know where to mail this information to. You didn't give us a forwarding address or things like that. Because I've seen that sometimes too, where it's like, oh, a client will come back and say, oh, well, they said that they sent this to me, or, I didn't receive it or I didn't get it. Well, did you give them the address that you were moving to? Well, no. Well,
Right.
how were they supposed to send it to you then if they, how were they supposed to notify you of the debt? So, yeah, that gets a
Yeah,
little
that goes on the
foggy.
security deposit too. They can't send you the security deposit if they don't know your forwarding
The new
address.
address.
And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
I know for me, I take videos of my apartment before I move out. As much so, if you're currently renting, I will say make sure you document cleaning your apartment because I'm a type of person like when I move out, I do a very, very deep clean. Um, and or like some people hire maid services and stuff to come in and deep clean for them just to get out of those extra charges. But if you're not taking like documenting that you cleaned up and that you filled in holes and things like that, I've heard where like just having other clients that the apartment complex took pictures of another apartment and actually said it was their apartment and it was damages in their apartment. And since they didn't have proof to say, well, that's not my apartment, that wasn't true, then they got stuck with those charges or whatever. So I would say document.
Well, and also schedule the walkthrough with the
Yeah.
previous person. When you move out, schedule the walkthrough. That way
Mhm.
they can't say, oh, you walked through this with me. So, and you saw XYZ. So yeah, for sure. For
No, yeah,
sure, for
that's
sure.
good advice. I give people, and now it's so easy with your phone to, it's so accessible and keep it somewhere. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I had a friend, they hired a maid service and then still got hit with fees that it wasn't clean enough. So, you want to
Yeah, I
document
got hit
do
with
that
that too.
walkthrough.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good idea.
Yeah, I
yeah.
got hit with that too. And I was like, I put my all into cleaning
You
this
put that
apartment.
elbow grease in there.
Yeah.
Honestly, the apartment was cleaner than it was when I moved in. When I
Oh,
moved
wow.
Well, and then
in.
they also have to consider, depending on how many years that you've been in there, if they've never
Correct.
cleaned the carpet, if they've never painted or anything like that, if you've been in there 4, 5, 6 years, that's normal wear and tear, and that you're not responsible for that then at that point. So, I mean, I'm not gonna go hire a whole cleaning service to come in and try to shampoo carpet when it was old
Yeah.
carpet when I
Yeah,
moved
they
in and
supposed to tear it
it
up.
hasn't been cleaned in. Yeah. So yeah,
So yeah, no, that's a good point. That's kind of the normal process I said is I usually, well, when you ask for the security deposit and then they give you a list of everything, and then you basically are saying, no, that's wear and tear, that's normal wear and tear. You cross it out and have that discussion with them. And then sometimes you can get them to drop it, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Um,
have a dispute letter if anybody needs one. Because again, I got hit with like, and I took videos and stuff of the apartment being clean. So they look for like, it was like little petty things to try to charge me for. So
Or not to give you a deposit back.
yeah, and well, actually, that apartment complex didn't require a deposit, so I felt like they were charging me stuff just to get me to pay something, because otherwise I would have gotten the deposit back. But I spoke with an organization that helps with Texas renters rights. And so she told me to stop verbally going back and forth with the management company and the leasing
yep.
office and to just send something in writing. So I just created my own dispute letter, sent it certified to the management company and the leasing office. And I told them what I'm not going to pay and why. I went through the lease and I was saying what was reasonable. Like I think they were charging me for nail holes. And I'm like, but the nail holes are reasonable according to my lease.
Mm-hmm.
I just never heard from them. Just
Yeah.
never heard from them again. Like they didn't send it to collections. They didn't respond to me. I just never heard anything back from them. But because I was willing to pay my utility payments, but I also had questions about that too. So I would definitely say if you move on an apartment complex and you're questioning any information that they're providing in the invoice, then I would just send them a dispute letter telling them, explaining why you want verification, because like my utility bill was tripled or something. It was a very high amount compared to the regular monthly payment. So I would definitely say, I would make sure you send that written letter to them, because sometimes going back and forth, it's like he said, she said, if that's correct. And you don't have that documentation that you're disputing anything with them.
Mhm. I have two questions also. The first one is about medical debt. How is it, or what is it that a medical company, a medical debt collection can actually request of you? Because this is what I'm asking the question. I've seen on the insurance company will give you like a letter of explanation.
Mhm.
They'll give you a $10,000 bill, do an adjustment for the insurance company, and then what the insurance company paid, and then what the balance is due for you. But for some people that didn't have no insurance, they have the entire bill. So how can they adjust or legally do an adjustment for an insurance company, but then give a full bill to the consumer and try to collect for it when they don't have insurance?
It's an interesting question. I'm trying to see. So I guess, um, I mean, if you don't have insurance, I mean, yeah, they kind of just bill you, and that's what the bill is. I know a lot of companies, so there's different hospitals, county hospitals, you can get medical stuff for discounted prices, and you may be able to go without having to pay the copay or very limited copay. At the county medical hospitals, I think maybe Bintob in Houston is one. Um, and so ahead of time, look at that and maybe do those. I know that a lot of companies or hospitals also understand if you don't have insurance, they will cut the price, and they have programs to allow people without insurance to lower the prices. Um,
Oh, so
yeah,
instead of $90 for national, we'll only charge you 30.
yeah.
My other question is about debt collection calls and things. I've seen people calls all times of the day. How many times, or what are standard debt collection practices, and what are they allowed to say and not say to you when they're calling you and almost basically harassing you for debt collection?
It's interesting. I'll admit, I don't know if I see this very often and if maybe it's changed. Because now we have caller IDs. Most of the people calling you, I think, are scams nowadays and aren't actual debt collectors. They don't tell you the information. They call from a number you can't find. And so even if debt collectors have the right to call people, I'm just really hesitant. I can't really remember a time when a legitimate debt collector was calling a client. I But as far as what they can do, I mean, they basically just call you and try to get information. You don't have to respond. Um, Really, what they're trying to get is the information. A lot of times when they try to call you, it's to get an updated address because they would need that to file a lawsuit against you or try to collect or send you letters. And so, really, what they're probably trying to do is get that information so that they can find you and file a lawsuit against you. I'd be very hesitant to pay over the phone. Like I said, they have to give you a verification letter after in writing after you talk to them in person. And so, um, that's just another way of more information. Um, I just with how many scams there are nowadays, I would just be very hesitant to do anything over the phone without getting something from them in writing. Um, that kind of just verifies. You want to challenge it, get that verification letter and see if it comes in. If they're harassing you, again, usually that means it's not a real debt collector that you could find and sue. It's usually some kind of scam where they're um, just trying to scam people into collecting some kind of money.
Can a creditor still charge, like example, a credit card? Can a credit card company still charge you interest on a credit card that's been charged off or that has been sent to collections?
So no, so they stop charging interest at charge off. Usually they charge off 90 days, I think, after you stop making payments. They charge off um, that credit card, and once it's charged off, that's the amount you owe, and that's what they sue for. In a lawsuit, they sue for the charge-off amounts. Technically, they could ask for prejudgment interest, meaning interest up until they got the judgment, but that would be less interest than a credit card. It would be like 5%, as whereas, credit card interest might be 26, 30 something percent. But technically they might be able to get that interest. They usually don't ask for it. They usually just get the amount and then post-judgment interest. So you get charged interest on your judgment amount.
I've seen also like all these, especially online, social media, these debt collect or debt consolidation companies. How do they work? And then are those good ideas or not good ideas for consumers to do debt consolidation or credit card consolidation type things?
Yeah. Um, I think it could work. As Moni talked about, really what it is getting all that high interest. So if you have a credit card that's 36% interest and changing it to one, you know, one place to pay with a smaller interest. So you're getting that 30% interest and moving it down to 3, 4% or 7 or 8, however percentage it is, but it's going to be lower than your credit card bill.
I think I had asked that question last year of you, Monet, and you were even talking about doing it yourself as opposed to going through one of
Yeah.
those companies to do your own, ask the creditor or
Yeah,
something for.
so like with a credit card company, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm going through a financial hardship. I can't afford the interest and monthly payment. What are my options? And so they will kind of go over like what a payoff plan option would be. And that's when they close the card and they can drop your interest rate from wherever that 20, right now, what is like 28, 30%. They might drop it down to like half or less than half of what that current interest rate is. And then that can drop your minimum payment to a lower payment. And then it'll say, well, you have to make this monthly payment until this balance is paid off in whatever amount of years it's going to take to pay the balance off. So it's almost like the revolving debt becomes like an installment payment. And then they're probably most likely gonna want you to do an auto pay and as part of the agreement to make sure that you're making those payments. Um, Otherwise, if you don't want to do it yourself, then you can pay a company like Money Management International to do it all for you, and then they consolidate it into one payment. But they keep the admin fees really low. Like one of my clients, I think he was only paying like $16 per credit card, which is cheap compared to someone saying, I'm gonna cut your credit card balances in half, but then I'm gonna charge you almost that amount in
In
fees.
fees. Yeah, that's the part I was getting at
And
with a
so,
lot
like
of
money
these.
management, they're not going to charge you interest. They're going to charge you an admin fee, but they're not going to charge you interest on top of the interest that you're already paying to those credit card companies.
FYI, Monet can give you guys more one-on-one detail in your financial coaching session. Because we don't want to necessarily endorse a
Yeah,
particular company on here as
no.
far as, debt collections and, you know, all of that consolidations or whatever, but we're more than welcome to do a one-on-one session where you get more information about that.
Yes, and then when you meet with me one-on-one, I actually give different options that you can choose from. So I don't really tell you what to do as far as your debt payoff strategies. I just go over the different options. And then if there's, because I think there are other nonprofit debt counseling organizations as well. And so we can explore the different options together, and then you can pick which one works best for you. As well as if you want to go through like just getting a personal loan to consolidate. Also, if you don't understand, because I did mention that there are some credit debt payoff companies that are for profit. If you don't understand like what they're doing to help you get out of debt, then I've had a client call them on the phone in my office just so I can listen to what they were explaining because she didn't understand what they were explaining to her.
And they're fast talkers.
Yes, and then the person on the phone from the company said something that was not true, that was absolutely not true. So she said that, first of all, this person in particular was all current on her payments, but she was overwhelmed with the monthly minimum payments. So she was looking for relief on reducing the monthly payment that she was making. And so this company basically told her that she needed to stop paying everyone before they can help her. And then they told her that it would not affect her credit score that much. The person specifically said, "Oh, you're just gonna lose a few points." I'm like, "No," I'm like, "No, you won't." I'm like, a default can be like you can go from like a 700 score to like a 400 really fast. If you have multiple accounts that are in good standing, and now you have to get multiple late because John Ross, you said it take 90 days before they charge off an account. So just think about that. That's 3 late payments
And 3
per account
charge-offs.
and 3 charge-offs. And then not only are you getting those late payments on your credit report, you're also getting late fees and interest added to those accounts as well. And this is before this company is going to help you. And then once they help you, they're going to go through and they're going to negotiate settlements because now the debt is closed and charged off. They're going to go and negotiate settlements. And then they're going to charge you a high admin and interest when you start paying them back on those amounts. So I saw someone contract, it was around $40,000. It got cut down to like 20 something. But then all of the admin and interest that the company was charging was like 15,000. So really they only was saving around 5 or 6,000 going through that company. So that's why you have to be very, very mindful of what the debt repair company or the debt consolidation companies are doing. Because just like I said, the lady, she literally, she lied. She told the client it's not going to hurt your credit score. Barely, she said barely hurt your credit score. And I was like, well, that's not true.
Yeah, you definitely want to be able to do your homework. I definitely recommend reaching out to some nonprofit financial coaches like Family Houston to get some other assistance and know what your options are as it relates to debt consolidation, debt collections, filing for bankruptcy,
And debt
contacting an
repair.
attorney, and debt repair companies and things of that nature, and even those credit repair companies or what have you. And know that these are options and I understand some people they don't have time. They don't want to be bothered. They'd rather pay somebody to go ahead and just do it. And that's an option for them too,
Yes.
if that works for them. But know that you can do it yourself, that you don't necessarily have to pay. Or, or if you find yourself being sued or whatever, that you don't have to necessarily go out and pay an attorney, that you can contact a Lone Star Legal Aid if you're finding yourself facing this civil issue that you're going to need assistance with. So there are options out there. So we wanted to make sure that we again get the resources and information to the community members out there so that they are aware that you don't have to keep your mouth closed all the time, but you have to reach out. You have to ask the questions. You have to ask around and do some research and things like that, that there are services that are out there that are available to assist, wherever you can. So I will be sending out the contact information. I did put the links for some of the resources and for you guys as organizations in the chat. So you will receive the recording of this presentation and you will have access to the chat. In addition to that, in the email, I'll have the link of the recording along with the links to those documents that Monet, the snowball, those debt reduction calculators and how they actually work. All those will be included in the email that I send out to you guys as well too. Let's see, our next presentation that we've got coming up for as part of the series, we're off for the month of July, and I actually wanted to talk to you one day about one for August that we had talked about before. So I'll send you guys out information about that. But our next one in the series won't be until fall, and that one will be living benefits and insurance, how to create your own GoFundMe. We know a lot of family members wait until that there is some kind of an issue, some kind of disaster, some kind of a death in the family or what have you before they try to come up with some kind of financial solution to pay for certain disasters and things of that nature. So we want to try to give you some financial tips on how to then create your own GoFundMe, and living benefits and insurance sometimes can help with those kinds of things. So we'll have more information about that in the fall as well. Are there any closing statements that you all would like to make before we wrap up? No, or any other questions from any of the participants here? I still see nothing on the
I'm okay.
thank you, Ms. Lewis. All right. Well, with that being said, we are going to wrap up for the evening. We want to thank you all for joining us this evening for this presentation. We hope that that you all received the information that you intended to receive this evening in regards to this particular topic. If there are other workshops that we don't currently offer that you all may be interested in, or information that you all need, we do ask that you reach out to us and let us know. There is a link for a brief survey that comes up at the end of this presentation. We ask that you just take a couple of minutes and kind of let us know, how we do. How was it? If there's any other information that you guys needed, if there's something else that you wanted, then please let us know. As we're planning our sessions for the fall, or trying to get ready for the fall, we want to make sure that we are planning meetings that are meaningful, or that are needed in the community. So please reach out to us and let us know, so that we can assist you as best way we possibly can. What else do we have coming up this week? Tomorrow we have our legal workshop, our wills and estate planning, and why do you need it? That's going to be a hybrid session. It's online and in person at the Shape Community Center. Another attorney with Lone Star Legal Aid is going to be talking about that. On Saturday, we have our first time homebuyer education workshop that we're hosting this month for free at no charge. I'll have the link or the calendars in the email that I send out to you guys as well. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock will be the deadline to register for the free class for the workshop for first-time homebuyers if you're interested in that. Next week we have, if there are any homeowners that are on, we have our title fraud and deed scams presentation. That's something that's been running rampant in a lot of communities as of late. That's impacting a lot of the seniors, especially a lot of those underserved communities where there are air property issues, where they're being scammed and having fraud committed against their property, and they're losing their properties. So we're going to be doing that over at the Alice Young Library as well as online next Tuesday. And then part 2 of our our asset protection series about inherited property and clearing title is next Thursday. And then we're also hosting a free Todd clinic next Saturday. So for those homeowners, as an alternative to a will for your real property, you have an opportunity to get a transfer on death deed created and filed for free, notarized and filed for free with us next Saturday at the Palm Center that's over on Griggs Road. So that's all that information is listed online and will be included on the email that I send out and on our calendar and on our website for more information. With that being said, thank y'all very much. John Ross, Monet, we appreciate you guys taking the time this evening. We hope that you all have a wonderful remainder of your evening. We hope to see you all again next time. And so take care of yourself. Stay safe out there in this rain. Be careful. Cecile, thank you very much for joining us this evening as well. And on behalf of the Month of Service collaboration, we hope that you all have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. Same to you
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a good day.